Shalom Aleichem, everybody. It's been a while, and it's a pleasure to be back. First of all, most important, I want to wish everyone a Shana Tova Metuka. I want to wish it's now about 26 hours before Yom Kippur, Tavshin Ayin Zayin. I want to wish everyone a Gemar B'Chasima Tova. I'm not sure if you'll have a chance to see this before Yom Kippur or only before Sukkot. So I want to share an idea that really is connecting the concepts of Yom Kippur and Chag HaSukkos. And I want to personalize it a little bit. I will tell you in a very real way that the month of Tishrei, for me, is by far my favorite month of the Jewish calendar. I happen to love the intensity of Rosh Hashanah, Aseret Tshuva, Yom Kippurim. I really, really relish the intensity of it, the Avoda Meira. And then I love also the transition from Yom Kippur into Chag HaSukkos. And to me, it's really, on the one hand, it perhaps could look a little contradictory, because the avoda of Yom Kippur and Aseret Tshuva is certainly an avoda meira, and the avoda of Sukkot is perhaps the exact opposite. Is a sense of zman simchasenu. It's an avoda me'ahava, where we transition very quickly from the Yom Kippurim mode into a zman simchasenu, very physical. We take Arba Minim. We go out of our homes into the sukkah. It's quite dramatic, that shift, and it is indeed quite striking. What exactly is that juxtaposition? You see from Chazal, there's really an overlap in the Yom Kippur Sukkot transition. There's a minhag, Zriz Makdim LaMitzvos, to specifically build our Sukkos right after our Sukkot, right after Yom Kippur, Motzi Yom Kippur, Zriz Makdim, not before Yom Kippur, but we want to create some kind of bridge between Yom Kippur and Sukkot. The time between Yom Kippur and Sukkot is not these are days we don't say Tachanan. There's already days of Simcha as we leave the heels of the Avoda Meira, entering into the orbit and the penumbra of Chag HaSukkos. Is certainly an interrelationship, and perhaps the real bona fide message is, while there are two alternative ways of Avodas Hashem, they're both things that we have to integrate. Yom Kippur is a very, very extreme day. We approach Hashem as angels. We don't engage in achila, shtia, none of the chamesh inuyim, and we approach Hashem wearing our white garments, really, really in an angelic fashion. We deny ourselves physicality, not to subject ourselves to deprivation per se, but to say we're above that sense of physicality, and it's a very cathartic, redeeming type of experience. Chag HaSukkos is the exact opposite. We take physicality, we take Arba Minim, which are very physical. There's a mitzvah, certainly, v'samachta b'chagecha, of achila v'shtia, ein simcha ela b'basar v'yayin, simchas beis hashoeva. We go ahead and we take the physical and use it in our avodas Hashem and avoda me ahava. And they're both really integrated. That's our mission. These are the extreme days, but they perhaps inform every single day of our life, is to go ahead and have that constancy. While Yom Kippur and Sukkot are extremes in that fashion, we're supposed to integrate both of those ideas into our lives. And perhaps, on some level, at least if you're an Isaacsonian type of personality, it's easier to get into Yom Kippur. It's easier to say, Hashem, I want to be purely spiritual, purely angelic, and on some level, the Kulo La Hashem approach of Lifnei Hashem Titaru might indeed be easier for some personalities than the Sukkot celebration. Perhaps when it comes to the Sukkot physical, more physical celebration in Simcha El Basaviyan, you might easier go off course. But I think perhaps that is exactly the message of Chag HaSukkos on the heels of Yom Kippur, is we have that cathartic feeling, that Lifnei Hashem Titaru, that very high level of spirituality climaxing with Ne'ilah, and we're really on that spiritual high. And that's what Chazal tell us is the Hod of Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur is referred to as Hod, the light of the sun. It's very direct, it's very intense, it's very internal. That's the Hod, that's the light of Yom Kippurim. Sukkot, on the other hand, creates Hadar. Hadar, the notion of Hadar is a reflected beauty. The moon is referred to as Hadar. It's more subtle. It reflects the light of Yom Kippur. The idea of taking from the Hod of Yom Kippur and now bringing that into the Hadar, the Hadar Lavusha, the clothing of Sukkot. And the mission, perhaps, is to take Yom Kippur and integrate that into our physical lives. Take the spirituality, the Kula La Hashem of Yom Kippurim, and now going into Sukkot, which is, we'll call it the lachem of Sukkot, and integrating that spirituality into our physical lives. Now taking Arba Minim, now taking the sukkah, now taking the food, now taking the yayin, and elevating it and making it more spiritual. It's very, very striking that if you take a look, there's a beautiful Meshech Chachma, and the Meshech Chachma says that the mitzvah of Hakel, is done on Chag HaSukkos, the year after the Shemitah year. And he suggests the same idea that Miketz Shnas HaShemitah, after the Shemitah year is over. Now, what is a Shemitah year? The Shemitah year is, if you will, a year of Kola, a year where the farmer, the average worker who's been for 6 years, has been toiling, now has a year off. And he goes back into the Beis Medrash and he has a year of full spirituality. And then his mission and his challenge is now go back into the field. Now go back into your day-to-day existence and integrate that which you took from that Shnas HaShemitah back into that year. But specifically, the year after Shemitah, there's Hakel. And the message of Hakel, when we all get together on Chag HaSukkos, which is that holiday of integration, we all get together and we hear that Musar Shmuz of the Melech, the whole nation does. And the mission is, the message is, the Shemitah message, you now integrate that into your daily avodas Hashem, and that's exactly what I think the message of Chag HaSukkos is take Yom Kippur and that spirituality, and now bring it into your day-to-day, bring it into your sudos, bring it into your meals, bring it into your celebrations, bringing it into your achila. And perhaps when we think about how we move away from Yom Kippur, we go to Sukkot. Sukkot is a day that is a period of time that is replete with mitzvahs. But then the day after Sukkot is over, we have Simchas Torah Shmini Atzeres. One last day of celebration, but no more any mitzvahs. No mitzvahs anymore. Now it's just, once again, us celebrating with Hashem, but we receded away from mitzvahs. And then the day after Simchas Torah, we have something called Isru Chag, where there's no longer an Isru Malacha, still a special day, but no more Isru Malacha. We're receding back, gradually going back to normal from this intensity of Yom Kippur. Sukkah is full of mitzvahs. Shmini Atzeres, Simchas Torah, no more mitzvahs, just Isru Malacha. Now, Isru Chag, no more Isru Malacha. Now we're kind of receding back to normal, but it's still a special day. And then you have the last week of Tishrei, and the last week of Tishrei are still a little unique in that we still don't say Tachner in Shul, so it still has a little bit of a vestige. And then what's the next month in the Jewish calendar? The next month is Cheshvan, and Cheshvan is a regular month. Nothing going on. No special Yontif, no Chagim, no Chanukah, nothing. It's back to normal. But that's exactly the message of Yom Kippur into Sukkot, of Tishrei into Cheshvan, is to take that positive feeling, that relationship with Hashem, which is so real, so intense in Tishrei, and integrate it into your Cheshvan. Integrate it into your daily existence. Take the Yom Kippur and integrate it into your Chag HaSukkos. That's really the message of this very, very special month. Indeed, I heard a number of times from Rav Sachs, Rav Yonason Sachs, the idea that there's a famous Chazal. Why do we have Shmini Atzeres, that one day Yontif? So Rashi brings, and Chazal tell us, that Hashem says, Kosha alai predaschem. It's hard for me to leave you. So give me one last day. One last day that we can be together. That's what Rashi says, and that's what Shmini Atzeres is. No more mitzvahs, no lulav, no sukkah, just me and you, Knesset Yisrael and Hashem, because Kosha alai predaschem. It's hard for me to leave you. So the question is asked, okay, Yashakayach, it was hard for me to leave you, so one last day. And now it's any easier to leave? So you just had that last day, now you have to leave anyway. So we just postponing the inevitable. What exactly is the point? So perhaps that's exactly the point. What do we do on Shmini Atzeres? We march around with Sifrei Torah, around the Bima. And basically we celebrate our relationship with Torah. We celebrate that relationship. And what we're essentially saying is, you know what? When Sukkot does end, and when Shmini Atzeres is over, Kasha elai predaschem, it's hard for me to separate. You don't have to separate. You're not really separating. Yes, the celebratory yontif, that's got to come to a conclusion. Yes, we have to go back to work. Yes, we have to go back to school. But that relationship is not really over. And that's exactly what our relationship with Torah Hashem is all about. That's why Shmini Atzeres, the day where that one last day we can't separate, so that's exactly the day where we celebrate our relationship with Torah, our Simchas HaTorah. And that's to tell us, to teach us, to send that message, you know what? You don't really have to separate. And true, we go back to work. And true, we go back, slowly receding back to our regular day-to-day existence, Isru Chag, the rest of Tishrei, and then we go back into Cheshvan. But if you have that proper relationship with Torah, with mitzvos, in your day-to-day existence, in the workplace, in everything that you do, you don't really have to be separated. And that's kind of the challenge and the unique opportunity that we celebrate this so special month, this special month of Tishrei, is the intensity of Aseres Yemei Tshuva, translating that into a very practical ma'asi, avodas Hashem, of Chag HaSukkos, and then taking that into the last days of Tishrei and into Cheshvan, back to regular life, but with an imbued sense and a new sense of spirituality, of connectedness that we never really have to leave. And we should all be zocheh to take that lesson. It's a very, very deep lesson, a very profound lesson, and one that really speaks personally to me, something that we should all be thinking about. Be'ez Hashem, we should all be zocheh to really have a tremendous Yom Kippur, Gemar B'Chasima Tova, taking that inspiration and bringing it into our next Yontif of Chag HaSukkos, but ultimately taking that Avodas Hashem Me'ira and the Avodas Hashem Me'ahava, and now bring it into our regular lives every single day, understanding that, you know what, the reality is we don't have to leave. And that notion of Kasher Lai Predaschen, the lesson is we're still there, that relationship is there, hopefully Be'ez Hashem strengthened significantly by this unique period of Chag, of Chodesh Tishrei.